Welcome friends to another Dune video. Today we're going to look at secret messages. First we'll look at DISTRANS, which can be implanted in animals. We'll look a little of the history and why certain things didn't take off during the Butlerian Jihad. And then we'll look at Jacobsa, a secret language employed by assassins, Sardaukar and Fremen. Spoilers for the Dune encyclopedia throughout. Let's get straight into it. DISTRANS or dispersoid transponder is a type of communication device developed by the Fremen, and the means of communication are coded messages placed into the neural system of pretty much any creature. This started, according to the Dune encyclopedia, during the Butlerian Jihad. At the time there was a lot of research into animal nervous systems. The size of these and developments in circuitry meant this could lead to thinking machines and towards a deeper understanding of neural physiology, which is an understanding of neural activity, i.e. what goes on in the brain. The Zinsunni, who in large part later became the Fremen, uncovered this, and as their journey led them to Arrakis, they had mastered this. A distran has two parts, a wave translator and an encoder-decoder tube. The tube has Shigawai inside, and this was powered by the body's electromagnetic field. In terms of the message itself, that served as a password, would be spoken into the tube, and it would be held to the carrier's ear. The message was spoken to the Dune encyclopedia explains that the ED tube digitized the signal and fed it to the wave translator, which changed the signal to normal electrochemical stimuli and locked them into the host's nervous system. And this is where the wave translator comes into play. It would cause the message to be broadcast at set intervals, and another part would stimulate the host's vocal center, so the message would be hidden within a creature's natural sounds. When the host messenger gets to their destination, the wave translator was decrypted when the password was repeated, and this would also trigger a final message to broadcast. The ED tube would receive the info, translate it into motion, and speak with the voice of the sender. A fairly complex nervous system can carry this message. It can be used in birds and bats, and there is an example of one of them in the first Dune novel by Frank Herbert. With these creatures, when the wave translator was placed in the carrier's brain, the region of the brain controlling the animal's vocalizations, and it was easy to find and hard to damage. These creatures, under the band of the Fremen, also had great homing skills. Producing them was not so easy. They were small and carried sophistication in them, and the breeding of creatures for this purpose and the then training of them was a use of the Fremen's limited resources. But if well done, only the password needed to be known by the user, and the system was secure. These creatures would rarely be captured, if even recognized, and so the password rarely had to change. The wave translator, also once correctly set up, could be cleared and reused for another message. But of course there was a downside also to these methods. Birds could not go into buildings without being noticed, and it would look very suspicious in most cases, I would think, making the distrans difficult to use in places such as Arrakeen. Bats were limited by their range, and they could not search for their recipients, and also probably the weather affected them if they were ones that flew in the dark, and they would have to be trained to go to certain people or locations, instead limiting their message drop-off points, and probably increasing the chances of them being seen and the message being captured. There were efforts to insert these into human brains. These would play the message when the carrier triggered it with the speech. Those with the resources switched to this type. But at the time, humans with machines implanted were not welcome, and so there were protests raised, and this practice ended when the crystal scramblers ended the devices, having a practical use. Another type of secret message are Jacobsa, which were employed during the First War of Assassins. It means jargon or shop talk, and would be used at its earliest before the Assassins as a term by different working groups such as falconers and carpenters. The Assassins' language one outlasted these other ones, as it had a large vocabulary for devices and techniques, and so it was kept in use and it would not die out, and the term that meant assassin's jargon then later meant assassin's secret language. The great houses and the military then employed it as they needed a way to send secret messages, and so it led to them adopting the assassin's method. These variants of the mother language became loaded with specialized words, so for example, they were used by the Sardaukar. We do get an example of it recorded by Princess Uralan. Jessica is speaking to Shadout Mapes, and she knew Shadout was a title, and she knew that through her brain gesture at learning. Jessica sees Chakopsa in its earlier sense. The Dune Encyclopedia explains the Fremen Chakopsa was not just the code of hunted clans living on the margin of the law. It had a slang of their own, devised for security, but it was based in the language of the assassins. The Fremen would use the term in security activities as well as ritual purposes. One theory is the Fremen saw the Sardaukar use it. For the Fremen it was a complete language and they adopted it for themselves, but this is only conjecture. To finish, as the Dune Encyclopedia says, the Chakopsa of the Sardaukar has been completely lost, and the guess that the Fremen learned Botany from them is no more than a guess, until additional light is shed on the provenance of the Fremen ritual and hunting languages, guesses are all we have. So now, friends, I turn this over to you. What do you think to the Fremen's secret way of sending the messages, whether it be in birds or the Chakopsa itself? Would you, like me, want to know more details about the language itself, perhaps how the Sardaukar used and employed it? Have you left a secret message on a bunny rabbit? Comment down below.